This is Techie and the Biz, a podcast to explain and simplify how business technology is changing and why it can benefit your organization.
Welcome back to another episode of Techie and the Biz. My name is Max Silber, and with me is my wife and co-host, Erica Silber. Today, we want to discuss the significant shift going on in the industry when it comes to network, security, and mobility, and how for the first time, all three are coming together to address the constant threat of cybersecurity and the need to provide a better experience to the end user. To help us understand the shift, we are excited to welcome industry expert, keynote speaker, and product director for SASE product management at VMware, Ahkter. Welcome, Aamer.
Hey, good morning, guys. Hi, Max. Hi, Erica.
Hi, great to have you. To start us off, can you tell us how you got started in technology and what was the path that led you to be an industry expert on SD-WAN?
Yeah, so I actually joined one of the vendors straight out of college. I actually did my co-op with another vendor, which doesn't actually even exist anymore. So Northern Telecom, Nortel at the time, right? So they don't even exist anymore. And I joined actually in the Cisco TAC, and it was doing support for ISPs and Cisco's partners and enterprise customers. And it just gave me like a lot of appreciation of the complexity, the business criticality. And then from there, it's like you see all these problems and you just want to move upstream to try to solve those problems. And that's actually how I wound up in product management. Where I thought I was going to go after college was to go do like embedded programming for what was cool at that time, digital signal processing. Right. And it's a little bit dated at this point in time, but like, that's kind of where like, I feel that the people that are doing like this ML and these specialized chips and stuff like that, that's kind of what DSP was back in those days.
It's I feel like the story of the industry is everyone kind of thinks they have a path and then they kind of stumble somewhere else and they end up being really good at it. So they end up just kind of developing within that kind of core specialty. So that's very, very common, I think, for most of us in this industry. I wonder, what are the challenges organizations are solving when they move from, kind of a traditional infrastructure to SD-WAN?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I think of SD-WAN as really the evolution of this larger thing that's going on with enterprise WAN. I mean, if you think back in the day, and I'm going to date myself again, it's like when I started, you had people doing, like the Marine Corps was doing Banyan Vines, and then you had people doing X.25 and then frame relay. And really SD-WAN is just the evolution of the enterprise WAN. And there's things that make it more palatable, more, leaning into other industry trends that are going on. So for example, we didn't have broadband. We didn't have, cable modems and all this other type of stuff like 20, 30 years ago. We have them now. It's super easy to acquire a broadband connection and then to be able to connect on top of it. How enterprise applications are organized today is very different. They're not all in the data center. The majority of them are actually SaaS applications, or they might be hosted in, AWS or Azure and the like. And that just changes the nature of what the demands against the WAN are. And SD-WAN addresses these as well. So Max, just to sort of like come back to your question on this one, when customers look at SD-WAN, they're looking for that next generation of WAN technology. SD-WAN specifically provides, a lean into this new type of traffic pattern. It does network optimizations that make it better over the internet, which is the primary mode of connectivity. It provides agility compared to what was there before. And that agility actually comes from just how fast you can do deployments. We've had customers for VMware SD-WAN that actually deployed 8,000 branch routers in under a month. That's an incredible number. And it can only be done if you're making use of broadband connections, you've got strong centralized management, you have these abilities of doing profiles. And that's the other part of it, is that, SD-WAN almost always assumes strong centralized management that makes the operations of things easier as well, and cheaper on the TCO side of things. sorry, I rambled a little bit, but there's a lot of different things that come together. And then for a specific customer, it's, it really goes down to their business case and really what they're trying to achieve and where they are on their journey, in terms of the cloud services, distributed enterprise, and those types of things as well.
That's great. And by the way, that's the first time I heard frame relay in a really long time. So I remember frame relay very well. In fact, I remember when Erica and I actually started dating and broadband was available at the time. I tried to get on the Wi-Fi in her apartment and she's like, no, I use a dial-up. So that very familiar with the older technologies.
Me too.
No, not at all. Broadband was available, but we took care of that. Now we have broadband everywhere. So thank God for that. What are I guess what are some of the most common use cases? In which industries do you find have been kind of quick to adopt those benefits of SD-WAN?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I think one of the things that make SD-WAN, I would say, more attractive to certain industry verticals and those types of things. And if you go back to like sort of that operative word over there is WAN, well, you need to have a WAN. If you're like a completely like a LAN type organization, it may not make that much sense for you in the first place, right? Now, if you look at sort of the extremities of that particular attribute, you would see, organizations that just have a lot of edges. Oh, I'm sorry. We call our branch rather edges. That's why I got confused. They have a lot of sort of branches. Retail comes to mind. Like retail is like a slam dunk for anything involving SD-WAN. And a lot of times, especially, and this goes into the other attributes that we talked about, retail and specifically the networking and security team for retail almost always will actually run independently as part of this larger organization that has an IT organization, and they may have a standard for how they do their WAN, but the retail organization, this is sometimes called line of business. The line of business will have the authority, like we want to make our retail networking and WAN really run efficiently for what it is, and they will be able to make a separate independent decision that actually works best for that business. You'll see that in distributed factories, things of that nature. Like they will make independent decisions based on their specific needs, as opposed to, I mean, I'm coming from VMware, but like there's this corporate overload mandate. But then inside the line of business, you'll see different aspects of that. But we see government agencies making use of SD-WAN, and this goes back to like not only are they they have distributed branches, but they're actually working in all these not hostile always, but just sort of like very differentiated environments, right? Like the ease of getting like a broadband connection in the Middle East and in Asia and all these other places. It's a lot easier to just sort of be able to use the local provider for those types of things.
Would you say there's also a cost benefit there? Because I guess they're kind of like, moving from these very heavy, very expensive kind of MPLS circuits that have long lead times, I guess, and are typically very expensive. And now, they're essentially, I guess they could choose whatever broadband they want, right? In this type of solution.
Potentially. We see customers either way. We see customers that are making use of their existing private line with MPLS VPN, and they're using the benefits of centralized management with SD-WAN, and they sort of, weighed that aspect of it heavily. And there's other customers that are like, you know what, I'm actually going to take ownership of this broadband sort of divestiture, if you will, or just sort of local options. And that actually reminds me, like Walmart, Walmart manager has a lot of leeway in the decisions that they can make independently. And that's some of the power that happens is like, yes, you're using, vendor X SD-WAN, but your local decisions of broadband are independent, right? So that does exactly like you're talking about, Max. It leads to more local, faster decisions, deployments, those types of things. But there is sort of the other flip side of that is many enterprises actually really value centralized billing, right? It's like having like a single sort of, like PO that covers all their cases. And sometimes you can use that to drive better rates and those types of things. So I think just be aware as an enterprise, you have to be able to balance those types of things. And having individual store managers take care of POs for your PCI connection and those types of things, like that might not. There could be challenges in that area as well.
We hear terms like zero trust. And I'm not just talking about Max in the kitchen talking to my 10-year-old gamer.
Of course, I trust him. Just for the record, I'm talking about the online players that could be a bunch of old men in their basement. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. But in all seriousness,
But in all seriousness, we hear the term when discussing cybersecurity. So how does SD-WAN play a role in all of this?
Yeah. So Erica, really good question. So when we talk about zero trust, so zero trust, first of all, it is architecture as opposed to an explicit standard or those types of things. In fact, the US NIST organization has a really good document that lays out the foundations of that architecture. The second thing, like, what does zero trust mean for enterprises and the like? And it actually means different things for them depending on their specific needs. If you're a governmental agency and you've gone through all the work of classifying your users, rating them, and rating your documents top secret, secret, all that other type of stuff, zero trust may be an easier journey for you, because that is actually one of the hardest things with zero trust, is like you have to do this level of classification and those types of things. If you haven't started that journey as an enterprise, and by the way, most financial organizations, just because of regulatory needs, are already well along that journey. If you haven't done that, that analysis and classification, zero trust may be a harder thing. Now, what is SD-WAN? How does it relate to zero trust? Just going back to that idea. So, we had talked about one of the trends that's driving SD-WAN that makes it more attractive. And the two that are the most applicable for zero trust is there in SD. One of the drivers for SD-WAN is an increasing sort of case of like the distributed workforce. You've got hundreds of branches, people are coming into those branches, remote workers, you don't know exactly where people are, that type of thing. And we'll come back to like the security implications to that. The second one is like, you've got like a lot of resources. They may be in the data center, they may be in the cloud, they may be in the SaaS. How do you secure both sides of that equation, the users against the resources, right? And by the way, distributed apps and distributed workers is one of the driving things for SD-WAN. And zero trust offers a way to be able to secure and not prevent, but reduce lateral movement in these types of cases, right? So that's how they overlap together. In fact, this is one of the reasons why we launched the SD-WAN client, because it allows us to be able to, I know we're going to get to the SD-WAN client in a bit, but it actually relates to this specific thing that you're talking about, Max and Erica, is that, the set of customers that are looking at SD-WAN, they're facing these challenges. Zero trust is one of the security solutions that tries to address them. So it makes sense for an SD-WAN offering to incorporate aspects of zero trust, but also at the same time, we have to do it in a way that is consumable and easy for an organization that isn't, well along this journey of classification already, of being able to adopt these technologies and make use of them.
That's great. So it's interesting because we recently announced the addition of the SD-WAN mobile client as part of our product portfolio. Maybe talk a little bit about what are the security benefits to users and the organization of using an SD-WAN mobile client.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's networking benefits. We'll get to that in a bit. But on the security side, so the SD-WAN client, it does allow the administrator, the security folks, to be able to implement the zero trust architecture. And just sort of as a refresher, what zero trust architecture means is who the user is. So you have some form of doing identity validation, and you're able to basically create a very narrow band specific to the needs of that user to a set of resources. And those could be applications, it could be data share drives and those types of things. And then the final part of it is that you take into account the risk of that user, their mode of access. Are they coming in from a laptop? Are they coming in from home? These types of things. And that's actually part of that equation. So user plus context equals, a very narrow band of access. And the SD-WAN client actually does that. But the other part of this thing is that you don't have to do it. You can get started with the SD-WAN client in a very easy way. Is like, hey, you have users that are engineering users, or you have every kind of employee at an organization, and they have access to everything, or they have access to only the apps in this data center. So, and that is not exactly zero trust, but it allows you enough freedom to get started, to start providing connectivity for these remote workers. And over a period of time, as the organization builds on these ideas of better classification of users, better classification of their apps and their resources, they can over time, at their own discretion and pace of adoption, they can start narrowing that access to be more and more specific to that context and to that user. The final thing I would say, Max, is like, and this is just sort of the standard zero trust story, and our answer there is like, yes, we can do zero trust, but you don't have to do it. We provide a path to it. The other part of it that I always found really interesting is that, one of the things that keeps people from being super secure and to implement all these security things is that, like, we just, as security professionals, we tend historically to make things like black and white and super hard. It's like, you need to have this 30-character crazy password, and that's the way to do it.
Which I can't remember ever.
Well,
so.
and that's why you put it on the Post-it note right next to the keyboard. Right?
That's a great security posture. Yeah.
So and I think the security industry is learning from these and newer technologies like MFA and passwordless entry and these types of things. They're movement along the right path, right? And to that same point, inside of the SD-WAN client, we've made a concerted effort to make managing, creating, and monitoring security policies super easy, right? So we understand that a user is not just one class of user, but an engineering user may be they may be working on this project and that project and that project. How do you make that easily manageable? And these different projects may actually have different sensitivity to risk. In one project, you may be dealing in a financial institution with multi-million-dollar trades, but in another one, you're actually like, I just need access to the cafeteria menu. Like, these are not the same risk, right? So you should be able to get to the cafeteria menu regardless of where you are, right? and more controls on the multi-million-dollar application, transactions and those types of things. And this is one of those places where your traditional remote access, you can do it, but it's extremely hard and difficult to sort of manage these different contexts. And rather than just having like, okay, you have access or you don't have access as a whole, yes, we do zero trust, but the sensitivity to the risk for that specific resource, we've done some things within the SD-WAN client that make it super easy to manage and maintain these things.
That's great. So it sounds like it's making it easier for the user as well, because now, I don't have to kind of think about, am I going to have access to this or that? You already have the security posture defined in your SD-WAN environment. Now you're just giving me essentially an extension to be able to access the network through the client.
Yeah, and actually that reminds me of like something slightly related, which is like, we did a bunch of interviews with people that are on the operations side of security, and like, it was a surprise to me. It's like they spend the majority, I would say like 80% of their time basically like fielding customer requests of like, hey, I don't have access to this. Can you change this property to give me access? And it's just that upkeep of, it's not new security policies, but it's like, you've got to sort of take care of like, just repairing the roads, making sure. And a lot of that is actually user driven. And it's like all very sort of exception based and those types of things. And that goes back to that theory of like, how do we make these policies much more easier to manage and scale and those types of things. So yeah, so from the user experience standpoint, you don't have to open as many cases of like, hey, I don't have access to this. And that creates an entire workflow for the IT organization and the security organization. Is like, wait, who are you? Why do you need access to, like, those sets of questions and stuff like that?
I want to see what the lunch menu is.
Yeah.
So just to shift topics a little bit, with the industry talk now really focused on AI, I'm wondering, what is VMware doing to incorporate AI into their product offering?
Oh, so there's a number of different things. You may have to come to VMworld or VMware Explorer. I'm sorry, that's the new name, right? To actually see those. But this is not something that's new to VMware, and specifically even the family of products attached to SD-WAN. So we have an AI ops offering. It's called E&I. You're very familiar with it. And part of the work over there is, really getting ahead of your sort of traditional troubleshooting, understanding what's broken. It basically has all these heuristics built in of, here's the types of issues that could go on. And it's to really accelerate troubleshooting, identify and accelerating troubleshooting by identifying here's the commonalities, right? Now, is that really AI? And where does that boundary between machine learning and AI really, move over? I would say it's actually a lot of machine learning and organizing of data, which you need to do. And then the AI part actually goes back to back when, I don't know if you remember like Alvin Toffler and like the futurist ideas from like 20 some years ago, which is like, the building of expert systems, which is all this domain knowledge of how networking is supposed to work. Here's a set of problems. That is actually has always been sort of a fundamental part of AI. It's like you need to take the knowledge that's in this particular domain, automate it, and make it accessible to non-practitioners and things of that nature. So E&I does a lot of that. Now, the recent thing that's happening or has happened over the last 6-7 months, which is why you're seeing this reemergence of the AI term, is like the chat GPT and the large language model type stuff. And we're actually working on those as well. But those same ideas apply over here, is that if you talk to chat GPT about something super specific, it starts to sort of fall apart. It has like a lot of confidence in the lies that it tells you, but like the more specific the topic is, especially on, I was talking with an engineer over lunch last week, and he's like, I wanted to learn more about how certificates work and this, that, and the other, and ChatGPT definitely gave me an answer. It didn't make any sense, and then like you could tell very clearly that it was wrong also, right? And I think that's the next generation of work, is specifically taking that domain knowledge, the expert system things that we talked about with E&I, and making it much more accessible using the LLMs like ChatGPT and the like. And I think that is such an exciting time where because I was filling out this visa form, and I was like, I don't know what district this like Shanghai is in. And I could do all sorts of Google searches, and I did. And I'd like sent some chat messages to people that I knew were in China. It's like, hey, what district is this in? And this, that, and the other. You asked ChatGPT, and it organized the information and knew exactly what it was. And I think that's the big change, is how do you just make this so much more accessible to people that are not, they don't know the programming language, they don't know the specific way to, what's the magic sort of sequence to get this output, to have this information, and you can have this conversation with it, and it's able to understand to some extent what you're talking about and really get you to the next path. Sorry, I'm actually pretty excited about what, some of the announcements that we're making, but it's an exciting time in the industry.
Yeah, that's amazing. It actually reminded me when you said, AI does a really good job of lying with great confidence. This came up this was like a debate in a technology meeting I was at this week. And I liked one person's comment was, well, people lie to me too. Chat GPT just does it faster. So at least I'll get the same confident lie, except I'll get it much faster from AI than from the human.
There's that meme, right, where like it's true because the internet said it was. So it's like this is just like the natural extension of that same thing.
It is, right? In today's work environment, with more employees working obviously hybrid or completely remote, how has SD-WAN really played a part in this highly debated topic of remote workers?
So, I mean, VMware itself has like really leaned itself heavily into remote work, and we offer SD-WAN to the remote workers, especially, in fact, there's a sort of a side story about E&I being able to identify users that are having poor quality from their home network. And we do that by analyzing the quality of the Zoom sessions via E&I. And that actually prioritizes how fast you get the SD-WAN component, because like during COVID time, there were all these supply chain, challenges and whatnot. And that sort of logic helped us to like, address the problem with the most benefit, well, where you can get the most benefit, that's, with that type of approach. So I think with SD-WAN, and specifically the SD-WAN client, if you're a remote worker, you don't have the confidence of being able to say, you know what, I'm working from home, but I'm not in this. I'm not in the place where I'm going to get the super high quality, networking, even if it's broadband. I mean, we have workers on my team that are in Idaho. They work off of, not off of a farm, but they work on a farm, and their primary mode of connectivity is actually Starlink, right?
Wow.
And that's not uncommon, right?
Yeah.
And I think part of that remote work, the benefit of it, I mean, there's a huge debate that's going on, but it's like it increases your accessibility to a talent pool rather than just like the immediate metro that you're in. But those people are out there, but then how do you, that umbilical cord of data communications, that needs to be super reliable, it needs to be effective, it needs to be if that person is right next there to you. And that's where SD-WAN, the technology aspects of how it's able to improve the network connection, really start to become important. In fact, it's not uncommon to see SD-WAN coupled, for example, with Starlink and with other satellite technologies and the like, right? Because they sort of go together in that way. The second item of that is we've taken, those benefits of network optimization that exist in our appliance-based SD-WAN model, but now it's accessible also in a software model with the SD-WAN client. And that in my mind is a game changer because not everybody is able to, I mean, there's a cost analysis of like, hey, you need to go buy an appliance, you need to deploy an appliance, but there's also this, you're not always going to be like tethered to the appliance. Like, what if you need to go to Starbucks? It's like, or Costa, we were doing non-product placement, sorry.
Show up at a Starbucks with an appliance. I'm just going to use the internet real quick.
And that's where the SD-WAN client in a software, like, because the software makes it much more usable in those other scenarios as well. And then from an IT perspective, there's also the recovery cost is like, hey, the employee left, how do you recover the hardware? Do you just write it off? So all of those sets of issues just sort of fade away with the SD-WAN client as well.
That's great.
Yeah, I was going to say, when I think of a network infrastructure, I think of a physical location. So how could SD-WAN be expanded to users that are very mobile, like Max?
Yes, like me.
On the go.
Pretty much.
So the thing is, like, because it's software, you install it on your laptop. Then the SD-WAN client actually is available on the Apple iStore as well as the Android store. So it's not unusual to actually have the SD-WAN client with this network optimization technologies available on your phone. Yes, it's on your laptop, but it's also on your phone, it's on your tablet. And in fact, it would work as well on your mobile link, not just, the broadband or the Wi-Fi at your coffee shop and things like that. Yeah, so it's completely, I would say, untethered to the concept of this physical appliance. And I think the other part of it is it's available across a variety of platforms, laptops, Mac OS, Windows, mobile platforms like from Apple as well as Android, but Linux as well.
Yeah. Okay. Well, actually, I was going to ask you, in the interest of anyone who has ever tried to text message with Max and then receives this like sad green bubble because he's always using an Android. If I can't tell you how many times I get, oh, we can't name the text, we can't send this, like, why? It's like, oh. So I was wondering if client would work on any smartphone device, including Max's Android.
The sad green
Actually,
bubble.
Mac is Android. I don't even know what the Apple's. I shouldn't say that. I don't know. Is it the iStore or is it the Apple Store? I actually don't know.
I think it's
Apple Store, I think.
Is
Yeah.
it the Apple Store? But that's the physical thing, isn't it?
No.
Well, there's.
No, I mean, it's the App Store, I guess.
I guess
That's what it is. The App Store.
Yeah, I think that's what it is.
You're right. Yeah, I don't
I'm on Team Max on this one.
See, fellow Android user.
But that's actually. I mean, it's not directly a networking concept, but this is sort of tied into being agnostic to these sort of platforms, which is, more than the SMSs and with my wife and colleagues, we've actually moved over to sort of the untethered thing, which is like, for example, WhatsApp, right? And that's pretty much, and that's it's the same experience across the board. It's not tied directly to your phone number. And in fact, when I travel internationally, like I'll have a different phone number, but my WhatsApp identity is exactly the same. And you sort of see those, I'm trying to draw the line back to SD-WAN. So SD-WAN, because it's not tied to sort of it's agnostic of like, are you using Frame Relay? Are you using X25? It doesn't really care. Like you can use it wherever you want to use it. In fact, you can pick up that appliance. And if you really want to take it to Starbucks, you can.
Oh, that's really interesting.
That is neat.
All right. Well, that brings us to game time. As a way for our audience to get to know you a little better, we will be playing a game where I will rapidly ask you this or that, and you say the first one that you feel suits you best of the two.
I was not told about this. This is fine.
We like a little surprise. Yeah.
All right, cool.
Are you ready?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. Text or call?
Text.
Beach or mountains?
Mountains.
Facebook or Twitter? Or should I say X? Right?
X. What's X?
Yeah, Elon Musk.
I heard like multiple people
Where-
came out of the woodwork. Like we've already like copyrighted.
Where have I been? I didn't know they
Really?
changed it.
Yeah, there's no more bird, right?
So I don't use Twitter. I don't use Facebook. But you know, the thing I started using a lot recently is Reddit. And it's just like, and it's kind of funny. Like when I started using it is when like the downfall of Reddit started. But
That's like me. I'm always late to the party.
I'm still late. But I do maintain my MySpace page. So.
Oh, interesting.
Wow.
Okay. Well, I'd say iPhone or Android, but I think I know this one.
Definitely Android.
Cat or dog?
Neither. It's like I think my daughter has a cat. And every time the cat's around, I feel it's always trying to kill me. Either like physically or like through the allergy type thing that's going on.
Something with the eyes. I don't know.
I'm more on the pet rock spectrum.
Oh, okay.
Pet rock.
That you don't have there's not a lot of maintenance there, so you're good. Documentary or action film?
You know, it's actually I would say action film, but the other side of it is that I do read a lot of books, and they're all nonfiction. Right? Actually, like probably like the last fiction book was like I reread like Tolkien stuff and Dune and those types of things, but I haven't like read any fiction for a really long time. But I actually hardly ever watch any documentary TV.
Okay. Keynote speaker or speaker on a panel?
They're different experiences. I think with keynote, it's more about a lot of it is about the presentation. It's a lot of it about making things like super accessible to a large sort of audience, but you don't get that feedback loop other than, you know, the clapping, and sometimes you'll see like people like not sleeping, that type of stuff. But on a panel, the benefit I see is that there's a lot more interactivity. There's this chance for follow-up and those types of things. But I think the downside of the panel, by the way, I will be on a panel for from VMware Explorer. The downside I think of the panel is that it has to be ad hoc just because of its nature. And sometimes I wish it's like, you know what, I could have given such a much better answer. Like that Costanza thing where he's like, he has to reorchestrate that entire thing with the shrimp. So sometimes I feel like that with the panels.
Batman or Superman?
I think Batman. Yeah.
Cliff jumping or jumping out of a plane?
I've never done the cliff jumping, but I have done
skydiving.
Yeah.
Wow.
Wow, that's cool.
That is.
I have to say that on a recent vacation, Max, using a rope to climb out of the ocean and up rocks, jumped off of a cliff. And we were like in amazement. And all these younger men were just watching. I was just very impressive, Max.
That was a great trip.
But how did you know that you weren't going to like land on a rock? That would be like my worry.
I mean, so the answer is I didn't.
I kept saying, jump out.
Yeah.
Like that, you know, like the people on this boat were like, oh, it's safe. And I'm like, does he see that rock that's sticking 2 feet off the cliff down like 30 feet?
They said, by the way, it's safe. And I said, when's the last time you did it? And the response I got was, we're afraid of heights. So we haven't actually gone up there.
But here he is.
I'm here. I made it.
All right, Max. I think you're going to graduate to Acapulco cliff diving and stuff like that.
Next, I'd like to see some acrobatics, you know, maybe a little, you know, I could start judging it. I'll hold up some numbers.
That's never going to happen.
Cool.
Okay, cash or credit?
I actually don't carry cash at all. Credit card. It was interesting though, like on a recent trip to Japan, where it's not always guaranteed you're going to be able to use the credit card, So my daughter went with me, and she's like texting me about, no, WhatsApping me actually. She's WhatsApping me about like this amazing meal she's having, this, that, and the other. And like 20 minutes later is like, they don't take credit card.
Oh,
Do you
no.
she's like 40, 50 minutes away. I'm like, well, you're gonna have to get some cash. She's like, well, I don't have any cash. She's like, you're gonna go find an ATM machine.
Right.
Pull it out. And the minimum was like, I think like you had to pull out like 10,000 yen, which is like $100, and then all the other fees. So she's like, this meal cost me like a lot. So
Oh my, I could see that happening with our daughter as well.
Yes, I can.
Scientist and analyst Václav Smil's Numbers Don't Lie, 71 Things You Need to Know About the World, or Oil, A Beginner's Guide.
I've actually read Oil from, I don't know how to say his name, Vasiv Simil, something like that. Yeah. So I used to run product management for a group in Cisco for IoT. And one of the really cool things about, and I think any IoT organization, is that especially if you're in what I call like a horizontal IoT, which is like you're not coming out of, the oil and gas industry, you have a sort of a horizontal platform that's trying to match multiple industries, is you get to learn so many things about all these amazing industries that exist already, right? The oil and gas industry is just amazing. There's all the downstream work, all the upstream work, all the stuff about how I know there's like a lot of bad press about how fracking works, but the fact is that how they get that oil is like they could be zigzagging that, how they get and they work around like curves. It's amazing. There's just so many, like in every industry, in transportation, in oil, in the oil and gas industry, they're just like this is like a wonderful time for human civilization because there's like so much specialization. And then I watch all these TV shows where like all of it blows up and like no one knows anything. So.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I think Max, you would really enjoy them. He does all this interdisciplinary, which I love that word, interdisciplinary research. I think it's cool and it's fun to learn. Okay, yoga or CrossFit?
I'm just trying to lose weight, to be honest.
Okay.
I've heard though that CrossFit is not as good for your knees. So that would be like something I would worry about.
I think if you go too high in weight too soon, I've been doing CrossFit and knock on wood, I'm not injured so far. I've been doing it for probably 6-7 months now. But I think it's when people try to go up in weight too quickly.
What helps, like Max, like in that case, is it like, are you counting on a trainer or your own sort of self-judgment to tell you this is too much?
A little bit of both. Sometimes the trainer's like, put more weights on it. And I'm like, no, that sounds like a really bad idea.
I think that's my challenge is like, I don't know. And like a lot of my, like if I'm trying to do weights, it'll be like, is this YouTube video giving me the right angle so like I can do the proper form and not hurt myself?
Right. That's true.
Uber or Lyft?
Lyft, actually, mostly because of the credit card like sort of like benefit thing that I'm part of. But I've also like I was in the car with this Lyft guy and he's like, Lyft has made, according to him, they've made an effort to be the anti-Uber from all their sort of, all the crazy policies and behaviors that Uber has, and Lyft is trying to be different and stuff like that. But I did like the TV show, like the one about like I forget which channel did it. It was like a real show. That was a really good watch.
Super strength or super speed?
Super speed, I think.
Plan it or wing it?
Sorry?
Plan it or wing it?
I don't know what that means.
Well, you plan everything or you're just...
Oh, I see what you mean. Okay. I think we were talking about like, superheroes. I was thinking like Planet Earth. that's where I was going. I think if you talk to my team, it'll be like, he's definitely like the plan guy because he's always asking for the plan. But I think it depends on context. It's like if I'm traveling, like, and I have Google Maps working, then I'll be just winging it, right? I think you just have to just sort of balance the risk and those types of things. My worry a lot of times is that if you plan too thoroughly, you've spent too much time planning and you don't actually get to enjoy it. But also, and Max, you talked about this earlier. It's like, life happens. Like, yes, I thought I was going to go do DSP, but I haven't touched DSP for like 20 some years. You also have to be sort of open to, there's going to be some value in the non-planned activity. And this actually happens in product management all the time. It's like, you thought, I mean, this is what the pivot is all about, right? It's like, if you're not paying attention and you're like, I'm going to go do this plan, it's like, you're not going to have very many customers if you just stick to your own plan.
That's true.
That is.
Work out or sleep in.
Trying to do both, to be honest.
Okay. Knowing it all or having it all.
I think, look, down the line on that one, I think having it all is it's a lot of on definition. And also I think it depends on like where you are in your life. Is it about material? Is it about experiences? Those types of things. Yeah. So, and even on the having it starts to intersect with the knowing it. Minus the TV documentary thing we talked about.
Forget your wallet or forget your phone.
I always have the phone. Actually, now, like, like with all the Android Pay and Samsung Pay,
Yeah.
leaving out the Apple stuff,
Yeah.
it's I think it's a
All you need.
Yeah.
Sunrise or sunset.
I aspire to wake up early. It was a lot easier in Japan. So like sunrise, sunrise, first of all, in at this time of year in Japan was like 3:30 in the morning, right? But because of the time zone change and whatnot, I was waking up at like 4 anyways. So I was like, this is really awesome. It's like, but then when I came back, it all like fell apart. So.
Yeah, there's something like exciting about watching the beginning of a new day.
There is. Yeah.
That, and I think the quietness of it is what I really like about it, is that you get some time to just sort of sort through your thoughts and all that stuff.
Yeah. On that, I'd read minds or teleport.
As a product manager, read minds would probably be the superpower. It's like, wait, are you actually telling me the truth, or you just telling me what I want to hear? And actually, are you going to buy this? It's like
the product manager superpower.
That would be the product manager, or be able to predict the future. That'd be the other one.
Young at heart or an old soul?
I feel old these days.
Ah,
There's just like too much stuff happening all at once, and I just sort of feel like, I think it's that like fear of missing out of a lot of things. So.
oh. Those were awesome. Thank you for talking to us today. That was
No, absolutely. Thank you, Erica. Thank you, Max. It was a lot of fun.
Great having you. To learn more about SD-WAN, SASE, and the SD-WAN mobile client, visit metel.net or contact your Metel sales representative.